I can already tell how this is gonna go. Okay, guys, welcome to Comic Quirks. I'm your host Jimmy with some great creators such as Eric Jones. How you doing? And then we got Landry Q Walker. He's already been on the show, but who cares? He's cool enough to come back. Okay, we got 3 people watching. That is a success in my book right now. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We will get to the book that you guys are here to promote, which I've had the pleasure of reading, and I've enjoyed it, so that's a plus. And I don't really like a lot of things that much anymore, so. Okay. So what you guys been up to, just so we can start off a quick chat?
Well, I mean, we have the new book coming out, but we've been working really heavily on well, I think, are we allowed to, yeah, we can say this, a second book in the series.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Cool.
You know, we're not.
Anything else? Like you got some, I know you do some DC work, Landry. Do you got anything?
I'm not doing anything with DC currently. What am I doing? Eric, do you remember what I'm doing right now?
Well, you're doing all the George R.R. Martin stuff.
Yeah.
What else are you up to?
Stuff. I've been doing a bunch of stuff. Oh, I just wrote a Star Wars comic for IDW, where I get to do a follow-up story to my Crimson Corsair story from 2015. That was a prose piece to tie in with Force Awakens. For the people who don't know, Crimson Corsair is a pirate, and he gets involved with the last clone from the Clone Wars, and it's fun stuff.
Awesome, that's cool. I kind of want to see you working on some High Republic stuff because that's been a big deal so far.
Yeah, let Lucasfilm know.
I'll put out some. I'll send a letter to Lucasfilm.
You know, it's funny. I joke, but that's the big thing. I think both Eric and I could attest to is readers that want things have to be vocal. We're very vocal as a community about the things we don't like, but you have to be even more vocal about the things you want that aren't happening. So if you want, say, a creative team on a book, you have to be very loud about it in this ecosystem. If you are not incredibly vocal about what you want and where you want it, then they won't think anyone wants it. The publishers won't.
Okay.
Absolutely true. That's what we've encountered many times, I think, in our careers together. The publishers and the editors want to know what people want to read.
Yeah, and if the community doesn't push that, then they won't know it. Otherwise, they just go by, I don't know how many Twitter followers an author has, and they judge that by audience interest, which is a scary part of how things have evolved. But I
didn't know they did that.
It's the only metric that if people aren't vocal.
So that's weird. I didn't know they go by Twitter followers. Is it just like they go, oh, this guy seems popular, so we'll get him?
Well, they know they instantly have, if you have 100,000 followers on Twitter, they know that you've got 100,000 eyeballs. The PR people can look and go, we can reach 100,000 people with a simple retweet. You know,
that's cool. That's cool to know. So, Ed Brewer said popular vote over what? I don't get that. Twitter followers. Okay. Chillmonger's here. My friend Chillmonger. He has a big YouTube channel as well, so I'm happy he's here. So I was talking to you guys a little bit about off air about Game of Thrones. I recently binged it all. It took me 2 weeks, and it just so happens someone here has written it in a comic form, and someone here also has done some inks on it. Or is it the colors? Colors?
No. Eric did the inks on The Last Siege.
Oh, The Last Siege. My bad.
Close up.
On The Last Siege.
I mean, that's close enough, right?
it's similar territory.
Yeah. It's weird, actually. I would say, because I've been adapting George R.R. Martin's second Game of Thrones, second series in A Song of Ice and Fire. Game of Thrones is the first book. The Clash of Kings is the second book. It's been a little weird because, for a lot of reasons, the kind of project it is, but it is one of the only projects I've been doing regularly that Eric isn't associated with directly. Although he does have an eye on most of the stuff that I'm doing on with it anyway. Like, it's pretty common for me. Like with all the layout stuff, I was sending it to him and asking his input and getting, notes and tips from him because it was new territory for me.
Right.
We
Did
together so
to...
long we can sort of read each other's minds, and
Yeah, we even the projects we don't work on together, you can pretty much be certain that both of us have some involvement in it in some capacity, almost always. We've just worked together. How long have we worked together now? Almost 30 years?
Years now since we started.
Yeah.
Like our very first stuff was 8 years ago now.
Were you part of the team that went over to Walmart and did the books for them?
Wait, which is this?
Because I remember last time you were on, Landry, you did the Walmart books. Was it Walmart books? You had I think it was Walmart. I'm pretty sure it was Walmart.
I don't know. I don't know what the Walmart books are. It's possible.
The ones that you were selling like hundreds of thousands of books for.
Oh, Disney Adventures.
Disney Adventures.
They were in grocery stores everywhere. Yeah, Eric was just as much a part of that as I was, with more.
So what was your involvement with that too? Because we know his. What did you have to do with that too?
You.
I can't hear him.
Oh, me.
You.
Yeah.
I drew many comics primarily for Landry, or with Landry, I should say. We did the Kid Gravity series with Disney Adventures. We did some of our Little Gloomy stuff for them as well. We did some Kim Possible stories together.
Oh, nice.
Which we co-wrote. What else did we do there? Oh, Dave the Barbarian. That was a show that lasted about 30 seconds. We did some comics based on that there. A few other things.
Tony Hawk.
Oh yeah, the Tony Hawk thing there.
When
this is crazy.
We were trying to come up. We got asked to do this Tony Hawk comic, and we were trying to come up with an idea for it. When you're just kind of spinning it, and you have no idea. Okay, it's Tony Hawk does something. So we went to like this restaurant, and we sat in it for like 3 hours, just coming up with a list of Tony Hawk goes to the beach, Tony Hawk climbs a mountain, Tony Hawk goes to space. And it got increasingly absurd. And I think we ended up that Tony Hawk's video game malfunction creating a real life doppelganger of him, or he got zapped into it Tron style. I forget. Eric, you there? Yeah. I can't hear you.
Oh.
What's going on? Oh, there he is. He's back.
There you are.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. But we did like a Tron style comic with that one, I think.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
That's just weird. I'm just trying to wrap my head around a Tony Hawk Tron.
The Tony Hawk games were big at the time, and he liked it. Apparently, he asked for extra copies for his kids or for kid or something.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was neat.
Yeah, we got away with a lot of weird stuff at Disney Adventures.
Landry, back to sorry, I just needed to ask this question. You worked so back to Game of Thrones. Did you have talked to George R.R. Martin and asked his opinions on anything?
Who I not about the book specific. I have met him, but I work directly with Anne Grawl, who has been the editor on the book series since practically the very beginning. She works directly with George. I work with Rhea Golden, and she works every day with George. And the three of us, like the scripts I write go through Anne, and then, make sure everything, because she knows every move that's happening in the series. She knows everything just like a library in her head. So if there's something I cut for space that she goes, oh, no, that's important, she makes sure it gets back in. And I might push back and say, well, we can tell it visually this way. And then Rhea looks over all of it and triple checks it. I know George is, I know, he's looking at the comics. He sees them, but I don't, I don't have a direct line to him on that.
Okay. I was just wondering if he read it and goes, damn, that thing's good.
Well, I mean, my understanding is he's happy with it. He's a big comics fan. He wanted this book to happen. I almost was working on the first adaptation, but I was working on a Dean Koontz project at the time, and then they came back to me in 2015 and asked me, or 16, and asked me if I wanted to jump back on with Clash of Kings, and yeah, because I've been a fan of this since 2002, I think, is when I jumped in on this.
Oh wow! So you guys did Supergirl together. From my research, it's amazing how much research goes into this. There it is. Here, let me get that big so people can look at it. Oh yes, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
So what was so when you did this? How did you collaborate with the well-known, obviously hard to work with Landry?
Same as always. We kind of get together and we fight for about 3 or 4 weeks and figure out,
Nice.
Which one of us is going to be dominant in this particular creative endeavor. No, we tend to bounce ideas around for a little while and just kind of like we get really silly with it, like you were talking about with the Tony Hawk story. Like we just increasingly just pitch the goofiest concepts to each other, just kind of trying to one up each other over and over again. And eventually one of us goes, wait, what did you just say? And, we kind of go in like a real direction was something that sounded stupid 30 seconds before.
Almost always something the other person meant as something completely stupid. And we go, wait a minute, it's just stupid enough to work. Like Supergirl had a giant cheese wheel for a head in one scene was a good example of that. Where is that? I'm going to find the cheese wheel scene. And
come up with gags before we really nail down the big story.
Let's see what. Wait,
a little bit. There you go.
Yeah. There we have different ways of working. Like with some of the books we've done, I've done really detailed full scripts. But like say Supernova, our new book, for an example. I'm mostly just doing a dialogue draft. So there's some truth to what Eric says, but we figure out who's going to work, who's going to kind of take the lead on a project. Where I wrote what was functionally a 50 or 60 page graphic novel with Pepper Page Saves the Universe. We call it Supernova because that's part of the name. Anyway, Pepper Page Saves the Universe. I wrote what would be a 50, 60 page graphic novel, and Eric turned it into a 200 page book because he's pacing things out differently, adding scenes that he think will flesh things out that I then go and script. It's real push and pull back and forth. It's a real organic process.
So was there like
with this book too?
What was that?
More so than ever with this book too. Like we really just kind of let this one go organically, kind of through the whole process.
Oh yeah.
That's always good because when something goes organically, it's like not even your writing. It's sort of like the character knows where he or she wants to go, and I just feel like that's always more fun.
Yeah.
So was there scenes or let's say when he sent over the script that he just said, "You have a ball. Do whatever you want here." Was there anything like that?
It's kind of what this book was. As always, we tossed some ideas around, kind of figured out vaguely what we wanted to do. And then Landry got to work on the first draft. And after that, it just kind of, he handed it over to me and I played around with it for a while. And then, eventually I had, I don't know, I feel like maybe 30 or 40, maybe even more pages of roughs. And Landry and I got together and I showed him what I was doing. He's like, oh, you're really like blowing this thing up.
Yeah. I was really sold on it was going to be a 60-page book for a while. And then no.
Surprise.
211 pages later.
Right.
We asked like last time you were on, Landry, it was about writing for children, and now we have the artist. What's the main difference about drawing for kids that we don't really know about?
I mean, we've obviously done some material for adults as well, like our Danger Club series, Image. And that was certainly not for kids. But you know, when you get down to it, you know, I think a lot of people have it in their heads that comics for kids need to be dumbed down, both story-wise and visually. Like, you see a lot of artists kind of slumming, I guess, when it comes to working for, you know, kids comics. And the truth of the matter is, I hate seeing that. Like, whenever I work on a kids comic, I want to do my best work. I want to do, you know, really good, solid cartooning. And I feel like, you know, people who kind of go, it's just a kid's comic, I'll just knock this out, you know, over the weekend and then do my real work. I feel like that's really doing a disservice to the readers.
I was reading this Pepper Page, and I was like, I like how it didn't feel like a kid's book. It felt like just a normal story written, and it wasn't like assuming children aren't smart enough to understand.
Well, that's the key of all ages, right? Like, we get this a lot, and it's something we've encountered. We've been doing all ages comics since 1999, I think, is when 1998. We started with our Gloomy series, which is the one that got turned into the cartoon series Scary Larry. That one, we approached it with, there's three kinds of things. There's material that's explicitly for adults, and that can mean all sorts of things, violence, sexuality, however you want to do it. And then there's stuff for kids that an adult is not going to enjoy. But then all ages should mean it's accessible to everyone. You look at most of the Marvel movies, most of the Star Wars movies, most of these things are things that have an appeal to all ages. So when we pitched Supergirl, Cosmic Adventures in the 8th grade, we worked with great editors on that. To clarify before I say this, Jan Jones and Liz Marsham, both fantastic. But there was some people higher up who were like, yeah, it'll be Supergirl Cosmic Adventures. Supergirl, she'll have sleepovers and pillow fights with Wonder Woman and Batgirl. And we're like, we're not doing that book. That's not. No, instead it's going to be about, you know, the struggles of prejudice and losing your best friend and overcoming hatred and bravery. You know, that makes a little more sense to me. And these are themes that can resonate with anyone, right?
I wanted to see if this statement is true. Chillmonger says, just keep sex and drugs out of kids' book. Everything else should be flag.
I mean, yeah. I mean, everything goes under its own test. But for an example, in Supergirl Cosmic Adventures, we even managed to sneak in a death scene. People don't recognize it as one unless they look back at scenes that change it retroactively and read it with that in mind. They go, oh, that character just died. It's horribly sad if you think about it, but we did it in a way that goes over the heads of most children and a lot of adults. But if you want it, if you look for it, you're going to see it. You know, because
it's there.
Yeah, children have a capacity that we underestimate frequently in an effort to keep them from feeling bad. And sometimes feeling things is the most important thing. I saw Watership Down as a little kid in the theater because no one knew it was going to be what it was. Well, people should have known. And I left the theater with tears coming down my face. And my dad was really mad about not me crying, but about the fact that he felt like the movie had, you know, been the wrong movie. And I was like, no, I loved it. I loved it. I love the movie. It's okay to feel things. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel, you know, empathy. You learn empathy for people by reading about their perils and their plights and their tragedies.
I was the same way. I watched. I don't know if you guys know this Leonardo DiCaprio movie. I watched Blood Diamond when I was like 7.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and I was just like, this movie is one of my favorite movies ever because I grew up in a white neighborhood with like white parents and white friends. I didn't understand the concept of the time of racism. And so seeing this, I was just like, what is this? And then my mom had to like sit me down and tell me. I was like, well, that's just stupid. And so, yeah, like kids can understand. And that's why I feel like I saw a statistic it was Cartoon Network lost like about 60% of its viewers since they got rid of like the old shows like Teen Titans, Codename Kids Next Door, some like the like good stories, not dumbed down. And then when they brought in this new age of stuff, it's like they dropped viewers. And I feel like they missed a step there.
I think, I mean, every TV channel or publisher or editor or kind of the powers that be, like they've all got those things that they think they have got it all figured out on, like this algorithm tells us this, or this focus group tells us that. But bottom line is sometimes you can just kind of figure this out from a more logical perspective, and just like for example, when it comes to telling stories, tell good ones and you're probably golden. It doesn't really take much more than that.
Yeah. So let's get into Pepper Page Foley now, so we can actually just sink our teeth into it. There's like some sort of this like meta realism in this book about a kid loving comics inside of a comic. What was the basis around that? Because I found that enjoyable.
I don't remember.
Landry, you want to field that?
How did we come up? We've been working on this book we started this in 2015.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, these things, we worked on Danger Club we finished Danger Club, and we had about, 8 months to a year where we were doing our own projects, but kind of starting to brainstorm what our next one would be. And I remember we were in a car ride coming back from Sacramento. We would go to these comic book stores, go to like A1 Comics and stuff with our friend Pinnell, and the three of us were talking about these different ideas that we were interested. And Eric and I had for a while been wanting to get back to an all ages thing after Supergirl. I don't remember why we decided that she would be a comic fan and it would be relevant to her superhero identity. I don't remember. Like, it's been 5 years, 5 very long years. Do you have any idea how did we come up with that?
I'm not too sure, honestly. Yeah. These projects tend to go through a lot of different permutations where we have an idea of where it's going, and then we'll shift gears pretty hard on it. There were some versions of this book that were distinctly different early on, where like I think at first it just completely took place in the future, if I'm not mistaken, in like its first iteration or two.
I know
it was more of a sci-fi superhero thing. I'm not entirely certain how we landed there, honestly.
Yeah,
it's been a long time, like Landry says.
What was some of our original names for the character? I know we had Galaxy Girl for a while.
Yeah, it was Galaxy Girl at one point.
Just play your names while you're figuring it out, and oh my god, Eric drew like 50 different logo chest emblems for the character while we slowly picked. Yeah. A lot.
Also, you have this sort of, I hope I'm not overstepping by comparing this guy, but Professor Killian sort of has this Nazi vibe.
I don't know.
Yeah, what's that, Landry?
He's monstrous.
We were just trying to hammer home that he's just this really evil guy. He's this really unpleasant, austere, kind of threatening personality. I don't know that I was necessarily thinking Nazi, and I don't think you were either, Landry, unless I'm mistaken.
No.
But I think it's pretty easy to draw lines from really terrible guy to Nazi. Like that's
he's monstrous.
There's a page I saw that hit it home for me. Do you mind if I share this one page?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Oops. All right. I'm just gonna have to share the screen real quick. All right. This page right here, he has like this. His cheekbones kind of remind me of like a general plus the suit. It just reminds me of like a Nazi sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was designing him, I was just trying to, hit that sort of classic villain kind of appearance more than anything. Just like make him look really arch and really, kind of like a guy you wouldn't want to meet or be around.
I think we talked about Peter Cushing. I think we talked about Peter Cushing.
Yeah,
archetype.
Yeah, we did.
Let's face it. One of his most famous roles now is that of a space Nazi in Star Wars.
True.
Right. Well, I looked at him and it kind of reminded me of what Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones, the father.
Oh, I can see that.
That weird face. I love it.
He's great. He would actually be well cast as Killian if we were doing fan casting here. If he's is interested, his people can call our people, and we'll have to get people, but we'll make that happen.
So also, this thing is a really big deal about bullying. You wanted to. I feel like you guys really wanted to hit home about that.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would go as far as say, I'm not going to speak for Eric here, and you can jump in, but certainly my experience as a kid growing up in this small town of El Sobrante wasn't stellar. And so, there's a lot I could relate to with that, with the bullying and anti-bullying message that's in there. And, it's never a subject, I think, that it's a subject that can always be highlighted more. And having a character like Pepper who goes through this journey of having it it's been drilled into her that she's not important, that she can't stand up for herself. Not that she shouldn't, but that she can't. And she has to learn that strength. So that's my part on it.
It's a coming of age story, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean, and now you're an adult. It can also mean, finding your way or finding your, the strength in yourself, that kind of thing. And I think that was really what we were shooting for, just trying to depict this character as someone who is bullied and as someone who is, kind of lost as a kid, and she learns who she is, in more than one way.
Literally, she learns who she is.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of, we did a comic a long time ago where we had a character fall off a cliff, and in the last panel, characters are looking over the edge of the cliff, and then we end with this shot of looking up at them looking down the cliff, and you don't know what happened. And we purposely ended on a literal cliffhanger. We like to hit those, kind of on the head. So she literally discovers who she is, just like they literally ended on a cliffhanger. We're a little unsubtle.
Sometimes, I guess, yeah.
So you guys gave her the Bruce Wayne. You gave her Bruce Wayne origin. She's an orphan.
It's pseudo Bruce. It's a little bit Bruce Wayne. I mean, a lot of them are orphans if you think about it. But it's interesting because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't read it, but there's a bit of a chicken or the egg question here with her now. For anyone who's listening to this, who's read our Supergirl book, you could see something similar when we introduce Supergirl's pet horse Comet, who Supergirl from the future sends her horse back to Supergirl in the past to help her, and then she's stuck with this horse. So she's going to have it till who knows when. Well, we know when. Until she's older and she sends it back to the past, to her past self, to help herself. Where did the horse come from?
Because I was like, isn't the horse going to die of old age at some point?
I mean, the horse is infinite. The horse knows everything. If you look at the cover to Supergirl Cosmic Adventures #6, the horse is riding through the multiverse. So that horse,
it's true.
Most powerful horse in the galaxy. It's a true star.
Okay. I gotta ask. Oh crap! I lost my question. So, people in the chat, just so you know, it's question time. Put your questions in the chat for Landry and Eric. We got some art here, real quick. Ah, there, that beauty. So, how long does it take for you normally to draw a single page?
Depends on the page, obviously, but usually in the neighborhood of a day. Okay. Some pages are a bigger challenge. Others are something I can knock out in an hour or two even. But working digitally has changed things a lot for me too, because there's a lot less legwork, frankly. I can lay out a page and like I don't have to worry about cleaning my brushes or sometimes just like weird minutia like trimming paper so that it fits onto my artboard or whatever.
You're still subject to power outages though.
Sure am. Yeah. I just had one a couple of weeks ago. That was a doozy, and it bummed me out because I just couldn't work all day long.
And
I'm not used to that.
The best, your best power outage story though was that time we had we were at a deadline. This is in the late 90s. We had a deadline the next day, and Eric was like on the verge of finishing this book, and the power went out. And we were lived together at the time. We were roommates, and he was really close to finishing the book, but there was no power. But he wasn't drawing digitally because there wasn't a thing then. So we took the recliner and we put it in the bathroom because it was the smallest room and all the walls were white and there were mirrors, so it'd reflect light. And we filled that room with candles so he'd have enough light to draw.
Yeah, inking by candlelight at like midnight
on a recliner in the bathroom.
Yeah. And what they don't tell you about candles is that when you have like 20 of them in a tiny bathroom, it gets a little warm in there. That was a challenge that I was not anticipating on that particular project.
That one was hell. That deadline.
That was rough. Yeah.
This is back when we still had to send in the art in FedEx to somebody who they'd put in a giant machine to photograph it and stuff. So things are easier now.
Yeah, being able to email pages was just a revelation the first time I got to do that.
Oh my God.
That is the funniest thing I've ever heard. So this is going to be fun because I've been working on a book since last March, I believe, and we had a artist send in some pages to see, and it's so weird because like my creation's coming to life in a sense, and it's almost invigorating. What's that with you guys? How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, for me, it's a rush. Like every single time I get pages, I get a sketch. I'm always telling Eric, just whatever you're drawing right now, just take a photo of it with your phone and text it to me. And then he always does it nicer than that so that I can really see it. But I don't know that Eric has the same experience because he's the guy who makes that happen. There's no, I mean, you get the book when it in the mail, you get a box with books in it, but there's no stage.
The closest thing that I get, yeah. I think that's the closest thing that I get to experiencing that. Like, there's something really neat about, finally seeing the book as a book. Especially digitally, it used to be I'd at least have like a stack of paper when I was done drawing a comic. And now it's just, one more file on a computer. I think that's it.
We've been working with I should give a shout out here. We've been working with Pat Brosso. Is that how you pronounce his last name? I actually don't know how to pronounce his last name, and I'm a monster for that. I'm a terrible collaborator. He is just the best guy, better than Eric by far. And
a monster.
Yeah, he's a monster. Pat is great, and Eric does get to see the lettered version. Pat was our letterer. One of the letterers on Supergirl. He was a letterer on my Batman Joker's Asylum Mad Hatter book. He's a letterer on Pepper Page Saves the Galaxy. He was a letterer on all that Court of the Dead stuff we did. That was for Sideshow collectibles, if you don't know that stuff. So you do get that. You get to see it lettered, and that's a little bit of that step. that rush.
Yeah.
You know.
I have okay. Do you ever get like a book once you're done sent to you and you just go, I did pretty damn good on this book? And if so, what was the specific books for both of you?
I never look at them. I never read them. I can't. I'll only see flaws if I do.
Me too.
Like I just look. I put my head down and I look. I'll make it better next time. And I look at that. I'm working on the next thing.
That. I mean, I think I used to early on when a book would come out, I would look at it and go, "Oh yeah, I nailed it," you know. And then 6 weeks later, I'd pick up the same comic and I'd look at it and go, "I don't know if I nailed it." And I think what I learned from that is eventually I will come to be at least not thrilled with probably just about anything I ever do. And I've always felt like, you know, my goal as an artist is to improve all the time. Like, you know, I've been doing this for decades now, and I still, every project, feel like the one that I'm on now is better than the one that I did before.
Well,
And you know, that's always going to be my goal. And I think the minute that I do a project and I look at it and I go, there it is. I've done it. I've summited Everest, and this is the best, you know, the best comic that anyone can possibly make. I have to quit that day. Like, I think anybody who actually thinks that about their own work is probably wrong. So,
I promise you, I've never thought that about your work.
Thank you.
So it's an interesting thing Eric's talking about, especially in terms of art, because you can really see it. But what, you know, he's done, you look at his work on Little Gloomy, which I don't have on hand to show, but then you look at his work on, say, Supergirl.
You threw it away, didn't you?
I threw them all away. You look at his work on Supergirl, if you can see it, right? And then compare that to his work on our much more adult like book, Danger Club, and the reinvention he did in his art style for that.
Oh, wow. It's like two different people.
And yeah, he keeps changing his art style. And then you look at you look at Pepper Page, while he did revert back to stylistically a younger stuff, it's completely different than the Supergirl work. You know, it's here's a good page to show. He bounces around all over the place with his art style, and the end, like, it's every time, you know, he goes back to like an all ages style, it's a new all ages style, because he's or if he goes back to a not all ages style, same thing, because he's been adding to his arsenal of how to execute these things and changing. Because if you don't change it, it gets so boring, right?
No, that's a big part of the reason that I do that, is that I can't keep working. I feel like I get comfortable in a style to a point, and then I kind of feel like, you know, I've drawn this thing before, and it starts to feel stale, and it gets hard to work that way. So yeah, just about every project we've ever done, I've tried to develop a new look to some degree for that project. And I think even in Supernova, actually, Pepper Page Saves the Universe. We call it Supernova colloquially. It was a working title.
It's actually The Infinite Adventures of Supernova. Pepper Page Saves the Universe. So
it's a mouthful.
I was gonna say that, but I didn't want to.
But yeah, every scene.
We started
in the
with
book,
just the title Supernova. It was just going to be called Supernova, or there are other books with that title. So
yeah. But you know,
right.
I tried to develop slightly different styles throughout the book itself, throughout Pepper Page Saves the Universe. From scene to scene, there's some subtle differences, just to keep things interesting.
We have a couple questions, but before we get to that, one last question about Pepper Page. There was a scene of her in the movie theater. I don't want to spoil it, but like she's sitting there, and then her friends slowly start to fade away. I wanted to know the feelings behind that, because like when I was reading it, I was thinking she feels like an orphan even in her own surrogate family friends that she has.
yeah, Yeah, you just nailed it. I mean, that's just it. Even though she has these great friends who are there for her, she doesn't believe in herself. So even though they're trying to help her, that lack of belief in herself, that lack of confidence she has, we all, even those of us, we can be surrounded by people who love us and care for us and take care of us and help us and still feel alone. It's actually very common. And so I think it was important to kind of, we talked about that to make sure that even though she had these friends, that wasn't repairing, it wasn't helping her through, it was helping her, but it wasn't taking care of that problem she felt inside, because that was all internal. It was all, she had internalized all of this.
Yeah, it's a problem for her to solve in the story, right? Like that's a scene that takes place fairly early on, and she hasn't confronted her own her own feelings about all of this. She's just kind of wallowing in depression and anxiety at that point.
And teenage years are always rough because you're going through changes you haven't had for teen years, however old they were, and you just feel alone. Yeah, it was, for me, it was rough. My teenage years were rough, but it's
Same
cool.
here.
What's up?
Same.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Cliff. Oh, what's up?
Questions. Let's hear it.
Yes, Cliff. What do you think the future holds for comics in general? You guys don't get enough credit for your grind. Much respect to you guys, Jimmy. I see you keep up the great content well. I do what I do.
Well, I think the future of comics is just more comics. I think as far as the delivery system, it's hard to say. Like we've got physical comics and digital comics now. Obviously, the print world is struggling, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's always going to be kind of a market for some of that, at least. Beyond that,
I think it's going to be interesting. I have some wackadoodle kind of opinions on this, and that I've been saying this for about, oh God, as Eric can attest to, I've been saying this for about 20 years, because almost 20 years ago, we were working with Disney, and we helped shepherd some license deals with Disney and a small publisher where they were just licensing. And you see this all the time. Look at the fact that IDW is now licensing Star Wars books. They're licensing Marvel books. Look at the different Batman books that, say, Dynamite put out. Dynamite Publishing put out a Batman book. Yeah, Batman's hanging out with the Shadow, or IDW has Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. These massive corporations that now have absorbed these comic publishers of DC and Marvel over the last several decades, and as publishing is diminishing, they can make so much money just by licensing these out. At some point, the dam is going to burst on this, and it's just going to be like, why have this overhead? Just you want to license Batman, here's the rules, here's the conditions, here's the fee, because these deals are great. When we did that 20 years ago almost with Disney, the deal was, it was a 3-year deal. It cost X amount of money. You have that 3 years to publish what you want. A small oversight team of Disney will look at it and tell you what you can and can't do. And then after those 3 years is up, Disney owned everything. So they took money, they were paid for it, and they received an intellectual property from that. That's a great business model for these companies. So I think what's the future of comics? It's going to become one where if you have the resources, you can probably do your own Batman book, provided you work within the rules the company sets. I mean, that's my theory. I don't know.
That's going to be a scary future, because every comic book from now on will be a Batman book if that happens.
Well, what'll be interesting is it will destroy something that fans love, which is the shared universe.
Continuity.
Continuity is already eroding. There's almost no such thing as continuity anymore. That's why they keep rebooting. What's a continuity between, Batman and Grendel now? The crossover from the late 90s. Where does that fit?
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere. I mean, all of these books, when you have 8 different Batmans, they're just going to be, get the Batman book you like and don't worry about it. But continuity?
That's also kind of sad if you think about it.
Yeah, for
Man,
sure.
I think that there will always be a continuity, but there'll be so many out of continuity properties that people who want something that is different will have an option. I think that the future is going to be really, ultimately, this will be really great because there will be more comics and there'll be more diversity in the storytelling and the approaches. Just like look at the way things blew up in the 80s. Around the time Frank Miller did Dark Knight Returns, Alan Moore's doing Watchmen, you had so much experimentation going on, and especially the smaller publishers. You look again at Matt Wagner's Grendel from the era and all the experimenting that was going on with that. You look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, for that matter. There was some very experimental storytelling styles in those early issues. I think we're going to see a return to that because the rules are changing, as opposed to this is how Batman is drawn. His ears are exactly X amount distance from his head. They're always spaced exactly like this. He always has a yellow oval. His boots are slick like they're part of spandex. There are rules, and those are gone.
And Kelly Jones listened to none of it.
Frank Miller too.
Sometimes you get to make your own rules, but you have to be a Frank Miller or a Kelly Jones to get that.
Right.
But I think that's what's going to change. I think it'll be there's so much more, so much more freedom.
Ed Brewer, what do you guys think of writing for the trade?
Wow, that's a bomb.
You're asking the people who writes trade paperbacks.
This is our first one, right?
Oh, I thought Star Wars.
No, we wrote those as single issue stories.
Oh, my bad.
Eric, did we do any other write for trade stuff?
I mean, I guess Away Danger Club, but not necessarily. That was more episodic as we went.
It was meant to be read one issue at a time. I mean, it's written for the trade in the sense we knew it was going to be a self-contained story. It wasn't going to be, there was never going to be an issue 36 or whatever of that. There was going to be eight-ish issues and it would be done. But it's serialized. Every issue has a beginning, middle, and end of its own with a lead-in for the next issue. But it has an arc. So one issue would feature on our character, the magician. Another issue would highlight Jack Fearless. Another would feature Yoshimi Onomoto and the Jumbo Bots. And then we brought it all together at the end. Supergirl was similar in that, the first 4 issues are all self-contained stories. And it wasn't until the last 2 issues, 5 and 6, where it kind of combined together. And you go, oh, it was one big story. This Pepper Page Saves the Universe, though, was always written to be one big book. It wasn't serialized. And I love serialized fiction. I love monthly comics. I love chapter breakdowns. I think as a practice, writing for the trade leads to a lot of decompressed storytelling that I'm not a big fan of personally. It works for some people. It's just not my thing. So,
Eric?
I mean, it's like Landry said. This is really the first book that we've written this way. I don't think there's anything really wrong with it at all. To write for a trade. I think it just depends on your story. If you have a story that needs, 200 pages, for example, you're not going to be able to do that in a floppy. So. That's just a matter of practicality at that point. You're just writing to the medium. But I think if there are readers out there, and there are obviously who don't care for reading at that kind of length or in that kind of breadth, then the floppies are there for them. They can follow those kinds of stories, and vice versa. But yeah, I mean, I don't see an issue with either format as being, I don't think one is preferable to the other necessarily.
I think it all depends on the execution. And if you're not taking advantage of, I've got a 1-issue story, I've got 20 pages of story, but I got an 80-page book, I'm going to spread it out into 80 pages. If the story requires that, if it demands it, if that's the evolution of your storytelling, that's fine. But if you're just padding it, you end into some weird territory. And people often, I just like setting comics up to be read as chapters, as your ending hits a definitive point. So we started like with The Last Siege. We put these, I wrote these prose page chapters, these excerpts from some fake novels that were prequel material for it, so that you had when you got to the trade, you'd have this definitive stopping point. And then your brain would reset. Or when I do my Clash of Kings comics, if you compare the Clash of Kings adaptation to the Game of Thrones adaptation, there's one big difference. Is I insisted we put the big name chapter, like when we get to a Tyrion chapter, it says there's a white banner at the top. It says Tyrion in black letters. You have this, your brain stops for a minute and you start up again because it's serialized. And I think just letting a story play out over time is important and interesting. But there's no one right way. I don't
That's
know
the good thing about comics. They could be pretty much anything.
Yeah, that's the brilliance of comics.
Cliff asks again, what books are you guys reading now?
What am I reading these days?
I've been reading the Shape of Water, the one.
Oh, the Guillermo del Toro?
Yeah, I wanted to see the differences. And so that's been fun. I've got a giant stack of books in my office, that aren't, not in my office, that are in my other room. What was it? The guy who wrote that Stainless Steel Rat series, I just bought a bunch of his books, and I'm blanking on the author name. Read all sorts of stuff, though, nothing specific.
I've been rereading, I should say, a lot of old stuff lately. I've, got a big stack of, to read kind of stuff laying around, but I find that my work takes up, 18 hours of my day. I don't wind up, really giving new comics their due a lot of the time. In terms of like sitting down and really focusing on it and getting the whole thing digested. So I wind up looking at a lot of old EC comics, a lot of Mobius is one that I go back to a lot.
Mobius is great.
Amazing. And a lot of Will Eisner recently too. A lot of his Spirit stuff.
Oh, Spirit.
Yeah. That stuff is just breathtaking. But it's I think when I don't have time to read the new stuff, I wind up looking for stuff that has some nutritional value. So I go back to things, the kind of building blocks of who I am as an artist, and those guys are all that stuff is really important to me as an artist. So I try and steep myself in it.
I did forget about this. I just did a job for Disney involved me needing to read about, 80 different issues of Captain America spanning from 1940 to about 1980. And that was great. And I got really hung up on the, I'm blanking on his name. He introduced Madam Hydra, Stranko. I got really hung up on Stranko's layouts, of course, because they're fantastic. And
unconventional storytelling at its finest.
Yeah, I was looking when I was doing the layouts, the thumbnails for that Clash of Kings issue. I was really thinking a lot about what I had been looking at with Stranko's work and trying to bring some of that kind of visual storytelling technique. Because before then, I'd really been, with some of the thumbnails I'd done, I'd been looking at J.H. Williams a lot, who, for the record, is a really nice guy. You should interview him. Way more interesting than us.
Okay, so final question, because I always end with this, but my good friend Bill over at Comic Book University said it ahead of time. He said, "What's next for you guys? Any crowdfunders?"
Well, Pepper Page was almost a crowdfunder, but then we shifted gears on that one. But I don't think we're actually planning any Kickstarters or anything at this point, are we? I don't think so.
I might run one for that board game I made. We'll see.
Oh yeah.
The board game. This was going to, we were going to originally do Pepper Page as a Kickstarter, and that's why I had the puppet. We don't like being on video that much, even though, here we are on video, but that's why, we did the puppets. Eric has a Muppet of himself as well. And
That's amazing.
Do our video with puppets because we didn't want to be on camera, and because we didn't want us to be the product. And there's this push in publishing for the creators to be the product.
Yeah.
And I think the product the book should be the product. So kind of making fun of that idea, and at the same time building a wall between us and that is using puppets to hey, check out our book,
do it. But yeah, I mean, we're hard work on the second volume now of the Supernova series, and we don't have a release date for that yet, obviously, but that's taking up all my time. So I don't really get to watch TV or read comics or any of that stuff. I'm miserably behind on all the Marvel shows and all that stuff. It's just it's a mountain in front of me now. But it's just I think it's just going to be for the foreseeable future for me anyway. The next volume of the series.
Awesome! I can't wait.
I still know that I have 6 things that I've forgotten about that I'm working on. I just don't remember what they are. So.
You got another image book coming out?
Not planned at the moment. I mean, I suspect we will eventually do one. We, especially our
Last Seed Volume 2 is what I'm hoping for.
There is a plot for one. If we end up having the resources and time to do one, I would love to do one. Justin has some interest. We work great. Justin Greenwood was a great person to work with on that, and both
I love
Eric
Justin
and our other colorist Brad were fantastic. Pat, the whole team was just a lot of fun, and I have I would say about 12 more issues worth of material that I would love to tell in that world. But we'll see what happens. Eric and I on our big projects, we tend to we work, we're not we spend years on these things. We do. Danger Club took up a good solid 5 years of our time?
Yeah.
And so has Pepper Page Save the Universe. We don't try to overbook these things. We have a working list of things we want to do, and we had to realize, we talked about this recently, where we realized we're never going to get to all of these. We've got at least 15 different projects on this list that we want to collaborate on, but they take time.
So we are at the hour mark, minus a minute and a half. So I appreciate you guys coming back. Where can people find your book?
It's on Amazon, and any bookstore should have it or be able to get it.
Cool.
As of the 16th, yeah.
Yeah.
So go out and get Pepper Page Saves the Universe.
Find it there, because it is a good read. Thank you guys for coming on. And if you guys want to see more of me, I have more videos. Just do your thing. So we'll see you later. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks.
What?